What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Beta Memoirs. And what a day, what a day. There was some movement again in the morning, but I tell you what, it finished pretty stale because a certain Mr. Powell came on again today. I didn't quite catch everything he said today, although I'm pretty sure he reiterated a lot of the same stuff he has been reiterating. I know the big headline news that from what he did say was that nothing will be back to normal until essentially the rest of the world is vaccinated. So with that being said, I think we're good. We're good to go. In the market, it is actually 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that being said, the market is pushing up quite a lot after hours. And it is Take Profit Friday, so just remember that. But things are set up. We got bank earnings next week to kick us off. If bank earnings are on fire next week, I think we're really going to see this bull run really start to run. So without me jabbering, let me go ahead and share my screen. That way we can get a visual of what's going on. As you can see, the market is pushing up pretty hard after hours, which is good to see. Because everything is very bullish, I think a lot of the headlines out there are still highly concerned about everything that's going on. Yes, I get the rates. Yes, I get inflation. The biggest thing about inflation, though, to remember, though, is I think the idea of inflation, yes, you notice inflation when you go out to buy stuff in groceries and everything else, but you have to understand that it's because of the pandemic. It has nothing to do with the amount of money being flooded into the market. This is essentially what Powell is talking about, is that it has nothing to do with that aspect of it. It's more of the aspect of the fact that there was a pandemic and there was massive amount of people buying massive amount of materials and hoarding them during the pandemic, and we are still playing catch up from that. So that is what's to keep in mind, right? It has nothing directly correlated with the finance situation that is going on. Yes, there's a lot of money being flooded in, but also people are also hoarding. So that money really doesn't cause inflation unless there is a massive amount of spending, which Powell has alluded to coming into the summertime, the springtime, right? And everybody getting out and trying to spend some money. But he said we may see a spike of that, and then it may retract. And that is what he's ultimately trying to see. If people retract after this summer and stop the spending again and start hoarding money again, if that happens, all right, there's not going to be inflation. And I think a lot of people want to tie it in. Well, how did you say there's not inflation because of that? Well, it's not directly correlated to the amount of money that's being flushed into the system right now. It's directly correlated to the fact that we are in a pandemic, and that there was also a big tanker that blocked tons of trading materials. That's also something to keep in mind. You have supplies that have been in lack. That is what is causing inflation. It has nothing to do with the financial situation. Yes, I agree, all this money, all these other issues, right? We're living that the booming 20s era, right? That is what's going on right now and getting ready to happen. You need to be prepared to that. You need to understand what is about ready to happen and stop worrying about the inflation concerns. Inflation concerns are the fact that we had a pandemic and materials are scarce, right? Because of that fact, because everybody hoarded, everybody grabbed what they could. The world wasn't ready for the pandemic. That is what is causing inflation, not the amount of money being printed at the moment. So just be mindful of that. That is what's going on. This market is going to boom. Yes, and then at some point, more than likely, I think there will be a correction in October, but I think ultimately we will see a major correction, I think, by next year, early next year. I was thinking October. I think we might see some kind of correction by then. Not to say that there won't be a black swan by then, but ultimately understand that on coming into 2022, I think will be the time where we have a major correction. So looking at like February, March of next year, early next year, I think is where we can see that massive correction and start going more into a bear market. Everybody wants to call it right now. We just got out of a huge slide of pandemic. The pandemic has affected a lot of different things. It isn't all the amount of money that's being pumped in. Yes, that matters. I'm not saying it does not matter. It does matter, but it's not what's affecting this market currently. That won't really affect us till later. It's not instantaneous. A lot of times we like to think it's instantaneous, but it is not. It is ultimately the fact that we are still seeing the remnants of the pandemic and the restraints the pandemic is put on our society, our materials, and supply and demand issues from a year ago. So just understand that is what we're seeing now. And then the money issues we'll see a year from now, and that is when we'll have the crash when it comes to the money and the amount of money being flooded into the system. So being said, after that rant, I do have a long watch list. Tomorrow is Friday, but everything on the daily is looking very bullish. As you can see, SPY is pushing hard after hours. QQQ is also pushing quite hard as well. It's retesting. It wouldn't be surprised if we see a big gap up and pull back tomorrow, possibly for some entries on some of the stuff I got on the watch list. TLT is still holding solid, still playing range, which is good to see. So that is definitely a plus. But market-wise, I think we're solid. I think we're ready to rock and roll. There is nothing really holding us back. I don't think there's really going to be a black swan. Everybody wants to think that everything's going to happen right this moment, but it's not. It takes time. All these things take time. So being said, now that I got all that out, watch list. I do have a long watch list. All these particular items on here: Tesla Spot, Lemonade, Twilio, Roblox, DDD, NIO, all these on here, right? All of these they look fantastic on the daily. They are clean, right? There's a lot of headroom and a lot of space to make up on all these tickers. I'm not saying you can scalp these, do whatever you want to do with these, but these look all good for a couple day swing. Again, if everything, the market sentiment plays is the way it looks, right? All these things look good for earnings coming up and getting set up for earnings, because we do have earnings. Again, bank starts next week, kicks it off, and then we got all the big hitters. Early part of May, you're talking about Tesla, your Apples, and you also got Netflix, which is coming up in 2 weeks, and then you got Spot, which is coming up at the very end of April. So you do have a lot of major players that are coming up, and so I think this is the last week we're going to really start to get building up towards the anticipation of earnings. Again, Tesla had fantastic numbers. I actually loaded up on some Tesla shares because of this fact. They have awesome numbers, which will lead to great numbers for earnings, not to mention the fact that they what they've generated from Bitcoin in itself. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Tesla was looking strong today. When actually coming in, I thought we would sell off. I did carry over that call from yesterday, which gapped up and played nicely. I did sell it in the morning because I didn't like this pullback that it was getting. I was looking to re-enter, but I didn't quite catch it because I was looking at other things, and then it pushed up. But what I ultimately did when it came back down and held this, I did grab shares here. Again, for the long haul, for the long swing. May 5th is when, I believe it's May 5th for Tesla earnings. I'm holding all the way up till then, building up that position all the way up until then, and then perhaps selling half or if not more at that point just before earnings, and then going into earnings with something, because I feel like they're going to blow earnings out of the water, and then take advantage of that best that I can. Or ultimately what you can do is just ride it all the way up to the day of earnings, cut your position, let earnings happen, let the whipsaw happen, and then ultimately take a position after the fact, which is probably better because you're essentially just gambling going into earnings, even though there's a lot of things that point positive. That helps for the pre-run up, but ultimately you don't know for sure. So just know it is a gamble. You can hold through. If you're long-term investing, do whatever you want. You're going to hold it either way, so don't worry about it. But nonetheless, I'm talking about those people that are swinging or building up for the anticipation. So that's what Tesla looks like. Again, looks greatly. Looks fantastic on the daily as well. This big wedge, like I said, everything is pointing up, and I think ready to go from here. It is stuck between the 50 and the 20, but I think tomorrow we should gap up over this. If it does come down, I'll average down, but I see this taking off. There's a stronger support on this bottom trend line. So being said, Spot is the next one I have. Spot looks great on the daily. It broke out of its wedge. It's retesting. It's over the 200 and the 50. I did take a call in this for earnings. Their earnings is again at the end of the month. So ultimately, I'm trying to catch it early. But if we can break above this 292.73 mark, which breaks us over the 20 on the daily, we're really going to run. And again, it's been holding well over everything on the hourly even. I did get in this a little bit early up here, but I'm holding ultimately for the anticipation, because I know Spot has had some great things. They do some great things. They also have some great advertising that they just came out with for their podcasting stuff and just music in general. So that is something fantastic about Spot. They're always innovative and coming up with great ideas and thoughts. And I know it's a big holding of ARK as well. So if you follow Kathy Wood at all, you know this is also one of the big things that they are invested in as well. So Spot is one of them. Lemonade is the next one I have. I can actually just click here. So Lemonade, I've been talking about this one for a while. It's been consolidating a lot. If you can deal with a whipsaw, again, if you're not doing any short-term contracts, I'm not quite sure about the earnings. Lemonade isn't one I really want to play for earnings, but I'm sure it is pretty soon here. But on the daily, the reason I like this one is because it's been building a lot. There's a lot of consolidation, but ultimately, if you're waiting for confirmation, you want it over this 250. So you're looking at 97.52. So if it does break above that, keep that on watch, and then you can take a position, because it's only a matter of time before it does turn and break this 20. And then once it gets over the 20, then it's got plenty of room to rip from that point. Twilio is the other one I have for you guys. Again, I talked about this one yesterday. Did break the wedge, did retest. I did miss this one today. It started pushing up, but now it actually pushed above the 20, which is great to see. So tomorrow, you might actually get a pullback to retest that 20 on the daily, which would be a perfect entry for Twilio. And again, you got tons of headroom on this one as well. So that's what I like about these. A lot of the ones I have on here, most of them got tons of headroom, right? We've been, especially tech has been battered a lot over the past last month. So, and the next one I got for you guys is Roblox. Let me see here. Where is Roblox? Roblox, there's been a lot of consolidation. Again, this is a new IPO, so you do have to be careful with this one still. But as far as the EMAs, it did break again above all the EMAs, and it is completely above it. Lots of headroom now. So that's what you definitely want to see on the daily. If you have tons of headroom, then you look back on the hourly. Hourly, I think we're ready to go. It's just a matter of time. Once this market starts really running, I think Roblox would be another one to keep on watch and keep track of that one, because I think it will make for great gains. And I know it is coming into Friday, so that's the thing too, is that I know it is Friday. Maybe we get a pullback. Maybe that's your entry to begin the bull market again, because I think from this point on, it's nothing but up. The next one we have is DDD. So this one here, again, it's been holding on the hourly, holding support very well. I mean, at any point below this point, I think is a good entry point. But you don't want it to break below that 23.34 mark. But ultimately on the daily, this one as well. Again, the consolidation is really good. If you're really waiting on confirmation, I would wait until this 20 and 50 came down, although it's on a solid base and been holding this one for a while. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're looking for a good entry on DDD. I think that one would be a good one to watch. Again, there's some other ones. Some of these are at great supports. Other ones, like this one even may sell off a little bit more. You might actually sell off a little bit more to the 200. So that's something else to keep in mind. If it does get to that 2019 mark, you definitely don't want it after that 2019 mark again, because we could drop all the way back down. But nonetheless, I think it's at a good support. So yeah, that's DDD. NIO is the next one I got. You find NIO here. NIO, it looks like it finally broke out of the wedge. I talked about this yesterday. It looks like it did retest. It has been kind of sliding along this line. I think it's only a matter of time. I think it's kind of actually waiting on Tesla. It does have a lot of the same movements. It does match Tesla quite easy as well. So it looks like it did retest here. So tomorrow, this may actually be a really good one as well. If Tesla starts moving, NIO could really make some big moves as well. Roku is also one I talked about yesterday. I wanted to grab it this morning, but I did miss it this morning. I tried to grab it out of the gate. I wanted to come down a little bit further, but it won't come quite down. I wanted to hit the 20, but I didn't quite do that. Although I did hit it earlier today, I didn't notice that, or else I would have probably got in it. But Roku still looks good on the daily. Again, one thing I talked about is this is a very bullish move, right? If it can actually tomorrow come test the 360, 350 tomorrow, then you're getting a retest of the 20, the daily moving average. And then you got all that headroom. Yes, there's stops. There's obviously resistance on the way up, but you do have a lot of headroom back up to all-time highs and going into earnings. And Roku, I believe, is coming up in a couple weeks. I think it comes out with Netflix, and Netflix is in about 2 weeks or a week and a half at this point, I believe. So that being said, Roku, I like Roku. BA is one that I don't typically like, but it does look really good on the daily. Only if we do break above this wedge. So you're looking, if you can get a break to the 256.57, you get a break above this tomorrow on the daily. I'm just going to point this one out. I'm not going to play it. You do have earnings coming up at the end of the month too. I wouldn't be surprised if we broke this and started running, especially with some of the good news and everything opening up. I think if we can get a good run up to earnings, again, something I wouldn't hold, especially BA, because I'm sure they're going to probably get crushed on earnings. But nonetheless, I think BA is another going on to keep on watch tomorrow. Z is one that looks good as well. You got finally broke above the 50 and the 20 tomorrow, as long as we're holding above that 142.46 mark. Again, we got a lot of headroom and some speed bumps, but back to all-time highs. I can see Z really trying to attempt to pull that off. EXPI is one I did talk about the other day as well. You want to look for it to break out of this wedge, although you do have resistance here, so you may want to watch that. This may be a little bit rougher trip on the way back up, but again, you do have a lot of room, a lot of headroom, and one that I think can actually reclaim that headroom pretty fast. But that's one to definitely keep on watch as for tomorrow as another possible attempt. Again, you want it back over. If you can get it back over this 200 on the hourly, if you can watch that, it's not going to be $46 tomorrow. Again, this is 200 moving average. So if we can wait for it to pop over that, as soon as it gets over that 200 moving average, break out of this wedge, I think it's really got a lot of good room to run. Uber is still under this wedge, but if you can, this is another one to watch. If it does break out of the wedge on the daily, it has tons of room to run. As you can see on this, pull up the daily here. It's right up against that thing, right up against the wedge on the daily. So if it does break out of here and retest tomorrow, that would be your entry point. And again, you got some room. You got a good probably 10, what is that? 8, a good about $6 move, but I think you can go to all-time highs for Uber as well, following into earnings. Peloton is another one, like the other ticker I just showed. It is broke above the 20 and the 50. Tomorrow, I would actually look for around a 120.85 entry point on this to retest. Keep an eye on the 20 and the 50 here, because if this candle opens up here and comes down to retest, and these EMAs are right underneath it, that is extremely bullish. So something to keep in mind tomorrow. I know you've already seen these flags, and it's already gone up a lot, but I can guarantee you tomorrow, if we do pop and then come down and retest, this 20 EMA on the daily would more than likely be a good, as long as it still matches the daily, more than likely that would be a good entry point. And as long as it's above that 20 on the EMA on the daily, then it would be a good entry for up to earnings. Again, I don't know about all these earnings. The only ones I have mentioned are the ones that I am currently watching because I'm currently playing. So you do need to do a little bit of due diligence as far as the earnings plays, but Peloton is one, Altria is the other one, ALTA. Altria is another one. Again, it's been basing out, it's consolidating a lot. Normally, it does pretty well on earnings. Again, there's a lot of headroom here for earnings. But on the daily, we got this huge gap fill here. And we are also retesting the 20 and the 50, which are starting to come underneath that candle. Again, I just stated this is a very bullish move or bullish sign. Not to say that it can't reverse and just sell off, but we do have a huge gap here. So that is something to keep in mind. And then the last one I got for you guys is PAC-B. PAC-B on the daily, again, just retested the 20 and the 50, broke above that, has lots of headroom here. On the hourly in itself, again, it has hit up and then resold, but everything's still looking good. It broke above the 20 and the 200 and trying to get back over the 50 with a cross. Wouldn't be surprised if this flips tomorrow. Just keep an eye on that. And then watch this one, but I think this one could possibly break out. Again, you have strong support here too. So that's something else to keep in mind. So you may want it back over this 35, 70, 57. But once it hits that point, that would possibly be a good entry. Set an alert. And if it does break above that, definitely keep your stop right underneath it and then look for that headroom like I was just talking about. But again, guys, that's all I got. I know tomorrow is Friday. This video is a bit long for a Friday, but there's a lot of good setups. Everything is looking very bullish. We got earnings next week. That's something to keep in mind. And just be ready, because I think this is what we're looking for. Again, I ranted in the beginning of the video, but for good reason. I think there's just some clarification on what is exactly going on. I know you hear inflation with all the money, but to realize that it's not the money that is causing inflation, it is the pandemic that has caused it, supply and demand issues, not enough supply for the demand because of the pandemic, right? That's what we're seeing has been correlating over the past year, right? We're not seeing any information from the money that's being printed. That is something that we'll see in a year from now that will probably cause us to have a major correction at that point. So you're still looking at about a year out. Not to say that there's black swans, not to say that we won't pull back in October, but just keep that in mind. So until next time, guys, I will see you guys later.